The problem with being the nice guy is, now you get the woman, which somehow appears to be the main focus above everything else. Her best years are gone. And that's not even the biggest problem. The biggest problem is, with her best years behind her, with all the baggage she's accumulated in the process of knowing or discovering herself, that she somehow deems necessary, now she has standards, and not just standards, she has meaningful standards, she knows what she wants out of life, and most importantly, she knows exactly what she wants out of you as the man in her life. When she was running around, sleeping with every breathing mammal, she didn't have standards. When she was waking up in places where she couldn't even remember how she even got to in the first place, she didn't have standards. When she was having children with the most irresponsible dudes out there, she didn't have standards. But now that she realizes she's not everyone's type anymore, now she wants to settle. Equality did get into women's heads. When they start comparing cheating for women to cheating for men, they forget to compare what being broke means for men and what it means for women. Now you have women and like-minded people believing that experience, especially in the mating market, means the same thing for both men and women. Experience is valued in men, innocence is valued in women. The man has to trade his innocence and get beat up by the world to gain experience, which is valued by women, while men value innocence. They don't want a woman who's been beaten up by the world. The same way women want a man with a future, men don't want a woman with a past. If it's unfair for women because everyone has a past, then it's also unfair for men because everyone has a future. The issue being, the past is known, the future only remains to be speculated. At what point is a woman's experience genuinely meaningful to a relationship? If you can answer that concisely, then answer this. At what point is a woman's experience more important than her innocence? If she's more experienced in this case is based on the assumption that she gets it with the more people she's been with, does she stop wanting a leader in a relationship? Does what her experienced self wants in a man differ from what she would want if she was inexperienced or innocent? So, of what use is her experiences to the relationship, and especially the man? The whole talk of the woman finally getting to know herself has no positive bearing for her future relationships, her offspring, or her long-term partner. What are some of the things the young girl in her prime is doing today in the name of knowing herself? How many of those women who would claim they actually got to know themselves are completely comfortable with their past, that it is something they would want to share for others to emulate? How many women who go through that phase of knowing themselves actually build themselves up so that their future partners and offspring get the best version of them? Does experience for a woman mean that she's more mature to disagree with her man in a manner that doesn't jeopardize the relationship? Bearing in mind the emotional and psychological trauma women report from their past relationships, especially how the trauma scars them and complicates their future relationships, does the experienced woman have better control of her emotions than the otherwise innocent one? Sticking with the psychological and emotional trauma women speak of when detailing their dating experiences, shouldn't it be desirable for women to warn their sisters of the dangers of multiple relationships? If multiple relationships means more trauma for the woman, shouldn't women minimize their encounters in the dating market? Shouldn't the traumatized women encourage their younger sisters to settle early to avoid the traumas that come with multiple relationships? If women with vast experiences really have some serious psychological and emotional trauma, why are they out here encouraging their sisters to go through the same trauma in the name of living life, throwing away their best years because they're too young to be settling down? So apart from misogyny and wanting to diminish and control women, why would anyone have a problem with a woman having standards? Why would some insecure incel on the internet have a problem with women knowing their worth? Well, it's very easy. Women pick up standards and the whole worth thing a bit too late in the context of the mating market, and especially long-term relationships. Women don't heed to calls on having standards and knowing their worth when they are in their prime. As a single mother at 38, with multiple baby daddies and some abortions along the way, or with emotional and psychological trauma that can only be fixed with drugs and years of therapy, that's when she realizes that now she knows her worth. Once she's given her youth away to any and every man who looked her way, then she realizes that relationships aren't for fun. Then she knows what she wants out of a relationship. All of a sudden, she knows what she wants in a man. When she's told that dating isn't for fun at 21, with little baggage to actually minimize any chances of being happy, she believes she's free to do whatever she wants with her life. The amount of ignorance and arrogance she tells people off in her prime is just unmatched. She chooses to listen to her sisters who encourage her to have a whore phase. She listens to the same sisters who'll tell her of the scars they've had from having a whore phase, and she still go through with it, expecting sympathy and empathy on the other side as she presents herself as the victim. All those standards she has at 38 with psychological trauma and multiple baby daddies, those standards would actually make a lot of sense if she had them when she's in her prime. Then the expectations or demands are backed by the fact that she is in her prime, hence she both attracts and can get any man she wants. But she, with the advice of her sisters, doesn't believe that the pool of men she has access to narrows over time. The relationship between women's value in the mating market and their expectations or entitlement is somehow inverse, in that, as their value declines, their expectations increase. An interesting argument is flaunted, along the lines of, it is a different time for women, and women offer different things in unions and marriages today. From an evolutionary and biological standpoint, sex has always been used for procreation, at least for the most part. The parental investment theory has always been fronted as important in explaining why males and females, beyond the human race, pick mates the way they do. Reproductive fitness for women means getting pregnant, staying pregnant, and raising an offspring to self-sufficiency. As such, women have to be extremely picky when deciding who to sleep with, and top of the list when it comes to pickiness is security and stability, a partner that can provide the resources necessary to raise an offspring. Against this backdrop, females have always gone for safety and security, the most common manifestation among humans being money. Reproductive fitness for men means the ability to copulate with as many females as possible as an approach to propagating their genes to the next generation. As such, men are more indiscriminate when it comes to who they sleep with, and as an approach to guaranteeing reproductive success, men have always gone for younger, fertile women. Apart from younger women being fertile, they also haven't been around the block as much to ruin their chances to be happy in a long-term relationship, which declines with every partner, and therefore, they ain't a threat to paternal certainty. When they argue that it's a different time because women are liberated today, the liberated women still go for valuable resources in men. Male provision remains very important in modern unions, with the loss of a job or income for a man signaling the deterioration of a union spearheaded by the woman who suddenly becomes unhappy and overly sensitive to marital issues. Women have never been more obsessed with men's money like they are today. The same women who are free to pursue viable economic opportunities outside the home are now obsessed with men's money more than ever. For provision and protection, our grandfathers got appreciation, love, fertility as women got married in their most fertile and reproductive years, sexual purity and exclusivity that guaranteed paternal certainty, and superhuman homemaking abilities. And if they tell you that all this was degrading and unappreciated for women, remind them that existing alimony laws, which have conveniently been left out of the fight against the patriarchy, were passed by men for women, and shotgun marriages, which made sure that women and their offspring got the benefit of safety and protection of the nuclear family in the event that sexual activity resulted in pregnancy, were enforced by men to hold other men responsible. Today, all provision and protection gets a man is negotiation of what the woman should do. As a man, once you've provided for and protected the woman, then you'll get to discuss what she brings to the table, which somehow is very offensive to ask. As a man, provision doesn't guarantee you anything beyond getting the women on the table, with nothing. You provide and protect just to get her to sit at the table. Now, as a man, for provision and protection, you're not getting sexual purity or exclusivity because she's sexually liberated. You're not getting fertility because she'd rather 3 for baby daddies as she gets to know herself in her prime instead of settling down early. You're still not getting fertility because her reproductive system has massively been compromised by the tons of hormonal contraception she's been on as she was going through the period of self-discovery, and now you have to try getting pregnant from so early on into your union. You're not getting homemaking abilities because it's the 21st century and you can't restrict her to the home, you bigot. And get this, you're not getting financial assistance in the home because despite understanding how difficult the modern economic times are, and the necessity of dual-earner households, deep inside every woman is the feeling that her money is her money. And your money is everyone's money, because providing is your job, and homemaking is shared. Of course they'll wanna argue, and here's a good starting point. As the female homemaking role has faded over time, the male provider role still persists and remains extremely important in modern unions. So when they say it's a different time, is it really? What women are trying to do is control male preferences. Of course that's not something new. Something about every aspect of male expectation is wrong. Men can't want a homemaker, men can't want sexual purity or exclusivity, men can't want an economically profitable woman because then he's just lazy with his roles, men can't want a woman with a certain body type, a certain skin color, like men can't want anything, just take women as they are basically. Women want older guys because according to them, they're more mature than their age mates, and that's okay because it's preference. However, if men want younger women, which would be a perfect fit with the aforementioned female expectation, then it's because men are creepy and that expectation, similar to that of sexual purity that is accompanied by the whole body count question, is deeply rooted in pedophilia. Interesting is, a lot of things in male-female interactions fall within the whole pedophilia domain, but they're never brought to your attention. For instance, providing for adult women is deeply rooted in pedophilia, since women expect provision from men just like children do. Besides, loving women unconditionally is deeply rooted in pedophilia because it is based on likening women to children, especially on the innocence part and the need for protection. Obviously, being provided for and being loved unconditionally are desirable for women, but they can't undo their body count, which is something they don't like. The result? Shame men for wanting sexual purity by associating it with pedophilia, completely oblivious of similar ties when it comes to provision, protection, and being loved unconditionally. As women seek to control male preference, their standpoint, especially when it comes to the mating market, is that men should adjust, move beyond what they always wanted. Two problems arise. First, women aren't changing what they want in men. Instead, they're piling on. Women haven't stopped wanting providers. Now they want providers who also put emotion work in the home because providing isn't enough anymore. Do you think men can convince women to give up the pursuit of men with money and resources for the emotionally available ones? Realize that they're always singing about men's money from the top of their lungs, how they want not just financially stable men, but also very rich. Then once they get with those rich men they choose, they start complaining that they're emotionally unavailable. Second, as women are telling men to change their preferences, especially youthfulness, fertility, and homemaking abilities, they aren't telling men exactly what they're giving up all these for. Like, okay, so instead of homemakers, what should men go for or be comfortable with? Working women who believe their money is their money? Equal providers who are disagreeable as the cherry on top? What should men switch sexual purity, exclusivity, and paternal certainty with? Cuckoldry? So what should men switch the desire for innocent women with? Experienced, scarred women with scars they can't heal, and somehow it's their fault if they can't heal those scars. The relationship between women's alleged worth and their value is also observed in dowry payment traditions, which if you are taken aback, still happens in a lot of contexts, especially the African setting and other cultures. In the process of fighting regressive cultures that are oppressive to women, African women, and those cultures with similar foundations, don't seem to actually have a problem with dowry payment, and if they do, they aren't bothered with it as much. The whole idea behind dowry payment is simple. In exchange for the woman's hand in marriage, the man takes items to the girl's father or father figure. Different people interpret the whole occasion differently, but at its core, it is largely symbolic, the man appreciating the girl's family for having raised her so well, or a symbolic acknowledgement, or compensation, for having taken the girl away from her family as she joins the man's family. The items were anything from gold bars to cattle to farm produce depending on what was termed as appropriate by the girl's father. For most cultures around the world, the dowry payment process was largely symbolic, but over time, dowry payment has largely been commercialized, completely diluting the cultural dimensions of it. Today, dowry is largely paid in the form of money, and some of the figures being quoted out here are just crazy. It's not uncommon for some so-called modern woman to set their dowry price, completely bypassing the cultural element of the fact that the whole discussion is had by the elders. Worth pointing out is the fact that women believe and reiterate the fact that dowry payment doesn't amount to purchasing the woman, because she's not an object to be purchased, but instead, it amounts to appreciating her parents. The interesting part is, majority of women on the internet mock women who pay, or even assist the man in paying, their bride price as they believe it is entirely the man's burden. Suddenly, the women have an issue with appreciating their own parents as they put it, relative to the problem with being a nice guy in most modern societies, for a low mileage in terms of sexual purity, exclusivity, and homemaking abilities. Our grandfathers paid dowry in the form of a sack of maize and a jar of honey. For these modern women who you have to negotiate over what she's supposed to do in the relationship and the home, now men are supposed to pay millions in bride price because the fact that she went to school and works overcompensates for the fact that she can't cook to save her life. You have to try to get pregnant from the time you get together because by the time she wants to settle she's like 30-something years, and the fact that you got to negotiate homemaking. When you head to her parents' home to pay her bride price, she's this traditional woman who is family-oriented, a woman in the home. On your way back from the traditional marriage ceremony, she remembers she went to school just like you, and as such, you should also be washing the dishes because you didn't buy her. Her reasoning? Just because she married an ATM in you, willing to hand out cash anytime she wants, you didn't marry a house help or maid. Those who argue against dowry payment as a cultural norm often suggest that the whole ceremony objectifies women as they are presented as commodities to be exchanged with other commodities, hence giving men a sense of ownership of the woman. The sense of ownership is worsened by instances where bride price is set at insane figures, which has seen a lot of men walking away from the whole dowry payment process. The problem with being the nice guy is, you're the equivalent of the guy left holding the flowers. You're forced to pay that which the whole town was given for free, and they'll try convince you that you are the one doing the honorable thing. The nice guys are part of the reason why women pride themselves in having gone through a whore phase. At the end of the day, for most women, despite the kind of life they led, there's always some random dude who's willing to pick up the pieces, clean up after her. These are the dudes that have gotten these women so confident to the point of taunting or mocking those who choose not to be run through. You see, whatever women think they become at 38, with some ridiculous body count, emotional scars, and children with different men, there are women who are that their whole lives. The woman who doesn't have to see as many ceilings as possible to know herself, her worth, or her value, she just knows from the jump. The woman who doesn't seek the validation of male attention to know her worth. The woman, mostly conservative, who knew since she started dating that she'll be a wife someday. She didn't make her femininity or feminine energy, as they say, conditional based on masculinity. She was just feminine because that's who she genuinely is as a person. She didn't date for fun since every relationship she's been in, not so many like her liberal counterparts, was it for her. Every time she was disappointed, she didn't get over one guy by getting under another. She stepped back, picked her lessons, dusted herself off, and hoped for the best with the new relationship. Knowing full well that she'll be a wife at some point, she didn't engage in some weird activities that she'd find the need to blur in future relationships. The problem with such a woman being, she's not accessible, at least easily or cheaply. She's not impressed by material things like her available counterparts are in modern societies. She doesn't care what a date would cost since she isn't dating for fun. She cares about knowing the person, their values, what they stand for, and what their future is. The fact that this woman isn't all over the place means getting a hold of her isn't easy, hence she might find difficulty settling with the right person. The fact that there are nice guys and other men willing to domesticate wild animals because they're easily available and easy to impress means that the town bicycle gets to taunt her conservative sister about her marital status, while she simultaneously fights back anytime she feels attacked or undesirable, whichever comes first. The whole experience talk is just a self-serving excuse to going through their whore phase and come out the other side talking about everyone having a past and nonsense like that. Experience is only useful to the woman as she gets to say she had the experience. You know what? Scratch that. This article speaks volumes as it pertains to the uselessness of female experience when it comes to relationships. As a matter of fact, the more people a woman has been with, the more likely she is to be unhappy in long-term relationships, hence they're more likely to end up filing for divorce. Again, at what point is experience useful to a woman really? If you as a woman found it important to gather experience, there you have it. Baseline being, the nice guy never gets the woman in her prime. Instead, he comes in to clean the mess left by those she picked in her prime. And if he doesn't do a good job in cleaning up, then she points fingers and calls him names from here to forever. Basically, a thankless job, that one.